This executive order right here, the executive order on promoting access to voting, sucks. It really does, because what it is, if I may analogize this for a minute, it is like going to the bowling alley, something you can't do in a lot of states right now, funny enough, is putting up the bumper rails for the kid with the helmet and the hair plugs as well, who's currently sitting in the Oval Office and not delivering press conferences. But it puts those bumper rails up in order for the bowling ball, that is HR1 in this analogy, to just successfully roll down there, bounce off the sides, and knock over any opposition at the end of the aisle rather. Because if you agree with any of this stuff, you must be doing quite a few rails. With that said, I've read through this executive order. I'm confident in that because what it basically boils down to is that Democrats think that minorities are stupid. Something that most people who've been politically attuned, at least for a little while, can say with a fair amount of certainty that they are definitely the party that champions the idea of the bigotry of low expectations. Because even in the first couple of sentences here, I'll just read a couple of lines from section 1, the purpose of this executive order, to make sure that we win everything forever. No. The right to vote is a foundation of American democracy. Free and fair elections that reflect the will of the American people must be protected and defended and fortified. But many Americans, especially people of color, see how long that took for them to insert race into this executive order that is supposed to be for all of Americans? Remember when Joe Biden said, "I'd be a Democratic president, but I will be a president for all American people." Just tends to be a racialized president. Confront significant obstacles to exercising that fundamental right. These obstacles include difficulties with voter registration, lack of election information, and barriers to access at polling places. If you just removed race from that, you could theoretically make that argument for anybody, okay? You can make that for some methed out hillbilly in western Pennsylvania. You can make that for some pointy-shoed Mexicans at the southwestern part of Texas. Like, the point that you have to point out people of color are too stupid to get identification, know where and how to vote, just screams of the racism that Democrats claim to be combating all the time with all of their policies that are just trying to take care of people, when in actuality they think that you're too stupid to know what they're trying to do. And this one here, like I said, if they can't get HR1 through, which I think on the face of it looks unconstitutional, but that hasn't stopped certain laws from not being enforced in the past, so who knows? It's a total crapshoot. But now we'll go down after we know what the purpose is, because blacks are too stupid to sign up for voter IDs, according to Biden, I guess. I don't know, whatever. A policy. This is the policy of my administration to promote and defend the rights of all Americans who are legally entitled to participate in elections. Oh no, you're also trying to put in a couple of other people as well. Expanding access to voter registration and election information. Long and short of this one, include ways to provide relevant information in the course of activities or services that directly engage with the public, including through agency materials. Okay, something that the federal government can definitely have license over. Websites, okay, vote.gov, fair enough. Online forums, yes, your content on your platforms, fair enough. Social media platforms, is that tipping the hand that Democrats and social media, big tech, are in bed with one another? I don't know. It just seems like because they've already listed a bunch of stuff that they currently have access over, and the first thing that they point out is social media platforms, gets the noggin jogging. And other points of public access, so they're just leaving it vague, kind of like bribery, treason, and high crimes and misdemeanors. What does that mean? I don't know. Other public points of access. Whatever we want to federalize, then we'll have control over. About how to register to vote, request a vote by mail. That's what a bulk of this is about. Ballot, and how to cast a ballot in upcoming elections. I didn't think that we need a federal program to tell people how to go to a polling place and vote, but once again, I don't think less of people. I tend to think everybody's on the same level, and am pleasantly surprised by the results. So the rest of this section 3, is mostly about overhauling vote.gov and telling you about the different agencies, like especially here within 200 days of the date of this order, the head of each agency shall submit to the assistant of the president for domestic policy a strategic plan outlining the ways or outlining the ways identified under this review that an agency can promote voter registration and voter participation. Now, this is important because Executive Order, whatever number this is, keeps stating that, oh, this is going to be consistent with voter registration laws in different states, so you don't need to rescind this because we're just respecting states' rights. But like I said with H.R. 1, they want to do away with voter identification. So they're just keeping that in there, just in case we can go ahead, because everything else has been so successful in the past, that voter identification, oh yes, it'll be there. It'll be a central part of this, even though you just want to make everything multilingual, even though being a citizen of the United States of America requires you to be competent in English, but you have to make it accessible for everybody to write in foreign languages or read in foreign languages. Press X to doubt. Section 4, acceptance of designation under the National Voter Registration. Yeah. This is more or less just rewriting old laws that are currently on the books in order to make sure that it's easier for people to register to vote. And then Section 5, modernizing vote.gov, making it more or less a portal to each state in order for you to sign up and register to vote. Here's one thing I do agree with, at least a little bit. Increasing opportunities for employees to vote. It is a priority of my administration to ensure that the federal government, as a nation's largest employer, that's a problem in and of itself, but a story and a topic for another time, serves as a model employer by encouraging and facilitating federal employees' civic participation. Accordingly, the Director of the Office of Personnel Management shall take the following actions within 200 days of the date of this order, coordinate with the heads of the executive agencies, and defined in 5 U.S.C. 105 to provide recommendations to the President, through the Assistant to the President on Domestic Policy, granting employees time off to vote in state, federal, and local, tribal, and territorial elections. I don't mind that because more people who go out and vote and can vote legally, the better. I might disagree with you, but I don't want to suppress your rights. I just want legal people voting. That's all. It seems simple. In one of the first lines there, should be free and fair elections. I totally agree with that. Just how we're getting there is a little bit contradictory to that statement. Section 7, ensuring equal access to voters with disabilities. Yes, so making it easier and more accessible for people with helmets to fit through the door. We get it. Ensuring access to voting for active duty military and overseas citizens. Okay, so absentee ballots have worked essentially perfectly, except for in 2000 and in 2020. But the absentee ballot process is so much different than just regular ass run-of-the-mill mail-in voting where you just scattershot out ballots here, there, and everywhere. Absentee ballots are tracked from the point that you request it, from the time it is sent out to the time that you receive it, the time you fill it out, you put it back in the envelope and just track the entire way. And that should be used in very rare and in very exceptional circumstances. Military service abroad is one of those instances. But it also accounts for the fact that people are also living abroad. If you are out and you are serving for a couple years at a time, that is fine. But if you are somebody who has taken up residency and you own citizenship in the United States, I don't really care too much about your opinion on things, okay? If you're making your full-time living accommodations in a different country and you only come back for a couple of months in order to maintain your citizenship, I don't care about your opinion because you don't have the best interest of your country at heart. That's my opinion, but they want to ensure that that continues to happen, even though there are plenty of laws, regulations, and orders already on the books. So to put that in there is another one of those tactics where, oh, everybody agrees with this, so why would we want to get rid of this executive order? Even though it's not that easy to get rid of executive orders. So, number 9. Ensuring access to voter registration for eligible individuals in federal custody. Yes, criminals voting. And this one's important. The Attorney General shall establish procedures consistent with the applicable laws. And this would be Merrick Garland. And we already seen that that dude does not know everything or really anything that's going on around him. He is quite a stammering, stuttering moron. But perhaps he'll get up to speed. Like ACB. This is the smartest woman on the courts. And she just continues to hide under her desk. Oh, if I may bring up Trump for a moment. You guys know big fan of his presidency. I think he did a lot of great things out there. But the biggest hang up I had with him was the people that he put in charge. And at least in my opinion, the person who is the most detrimental and will have the longest effect negatively on his legacy is Amy Coney Barrett, because she is going to be around for quite possibly 30, 35, 40 years. And she has either recused herself, sided with John Roberts to not hear cases, and all in all, not live up to her promise of being an originalist. Clarence Thomas is an originalist. Samuel Alito's an originalist. Kavanaugh's a fence sitter. John Roberts is just a mislabeled liberal. Gorsuch is pretty good. And Kavanaugh, you can't really pin on Trump because he replaced Justice Kennedy, and Kennedy said he would only retire, and he probably would have ended up retiring whether he liked it or not during this term. And he said the only way that he would step down is if Kavanaugh was his replacement. So you can't really pin that one on Trump, because we know the two justices that Barack Obama assigned to the Supreme Court, and the fewer of them we need, the better. And once Breyer comes up, because I'm pretty much certain that that is going to be the next one to retire, because motherfucker's like 82 or 83 right now. And that's going to be Biden's first installation, and it's going to be somebody just as radical as Sotomayor or Kagan. I would bet you my hat, and I like my hat. But sorry, that rant has been bubbling up for a while, but where were we? Oh yes, the felons voting, because that's dumb. To provide educational materials related to voter registration and voting, and to the extent practicable, to facilitate voter registration for felons. For all eligible individuals in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Such educational materials be incorporated into the reentry planning procedures required under Section 4042A7 of Title 18 United States Code. The education materials should also notify individuals leaving federal custody of the restrictions, if any, on their ability to vote under the laws of the state where the individual resides, and if any such restrictions exist at the point which the individual's rights will be restored under the applicable state law. Now, if we were being fair about felons being released under criminal reform, you'd normally think that felons would just, mostly like illegal immigrants, would just go, okay, we're going to vote D, that's a good thing, we should vote that. But if the people are looking at the policies, they would realize that a lot of criminal reform happened under the Trump administration, and they should vote for him in the upcoming election. That's not the case. But that's what they're trying to enshrine here, making sure that everybody knows, hey, you know what? You finally got parole for slitting that old lady's throat. Well, congratulations, you can vote, and here's your options in doing so. And if HR 1 gets passed, you don't even bother after filling in all that additional pesky information. And hey, if you don't even want to register to vote in your own state, feel free to pick something else. Who cares? Oh, God, free and fair elections, guys. This is what this is all about. Section 10, establishing a Native American voting rights steering group? The fuck? There is hereby established an interagency steering group of Native American voting rights. So is Warren going to head this up, and you're going to be able to vote by smoke signals or sending in beaver pelts? Coordinated by the Domestic Policy Council, the steering group shall be chaired by the Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy and shall include the Attorney General, the Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Agriculture, Labor, and designees. Human and Health Services, and Veterans Affairs or their designees. Fucking why? Steering group shall engage in a meaningful and robust consultation with tribal nations and native leaders to inform the steering group regarding concerns and potential areas of focus for their report described in subsection D of this section, which is the steering group shall study best practices for participating voting rights for Native Americans and shall produce a report within 1 year to the date of this order outlining recommendations for providing such protections. No, you just set up polling places, for fuck's sakes. Put them in a teepee. I don't give a shit. Fucking serve Bannock for everybody who comes out. Make it an all-day affair. I don't care. It's not like they're doing anything else anyways. Remember, I'm a quarter native. And then the rest of this, I could read it, but it's making it out that Native Americans are going to become the pet project of the Democrats because they see, based on last time's, the 2020 general election, their hold on the black community is starting to shrink a little bit more and more. More black men are going over and voting Republican because they're like, Democratic policies aren't really matching up with our traditional values. The ones that are engaged in politics and the ones who go out there and vote, I can't speak to any other communities, obviously, but that's what the numbers bear out. The more that the men are engaged in the politics, they realize that the Democrats don't hold anything in common with their traditionally much more religious backgrounds. The line that they've been fed that Republicans are evil, terrible white men, when they realize that there is an authoritarian white man in the office and he has a D at the end of his name, is probably going to provide quite a few more red pills in the coming years. But because natives on reservations have been kept out of the loop for a while, the good white liberal can come in, spew their propaganda, tell them to go to vote.gov because they have all of their best interest in mind. Go ahead, eat down all of their tripe, their horseshit, and capitalize on that community. That is something that Democrats have been very good for a very long time. Their voting machines, not like actual voting machines, but the political machinations of things, the grassroots efforts to go out, knock on doors, provide information is far superior to that of the GOP. That's why it looked like control opposition for such a long time, and it was very easily exposed when Trump came in and seen what was going on. And I'd love to express the information that I've learned by reading Art of the Deal, because I think I've come up with an idea as to why Trump's appointees failed him. It's a theory. I'm working on it. I'm not quite done the book, but it's bouncing around in my head, and it's of course a topic for another time. But when he came in, he exposed the Republicans as the do-nothing party. And this right here is ensuring that even if H.R. 1 doesn't pass through, guess what? They have a contingency plan. And I feel like a bit of an asshole for not thinking of this. But, old Signy Joe, that's one thing that he did in the first couple of days. And it's been a minute since he signed an executive order. So really should have seen this one coming. I suppose I was in a little bit of a blind spot there. But it's not as bad as H.R. 1. It's mostly just controlling the messaging. And that was huge. That was massive in the previous election, and they don't want to be giving up that power anytime soon, and that's what this executive order promises to do, and that's the best that you can do with his executive powers. Can't federalize elections because that'll immediately get shot down. And remember, the filibuster is still in place in the Senate, so don't get too discouraged if H.R. 1 hits the Senate anytime soon. But if it does, I'll be covering it, and we got some good news in the next one. So this seemed a little bit depressing. Don't let it get you too far down. Because as much as the Democrats want to control the messaging going forward, their actions continue to expose them as being old, incompetent, and just bumbling assholes that say one thing and do another. If they keep doing this for 4 years, it doesn't matter what they put in place because people are just going to have enough. That could be me also being far too optimistic, but I would rather hope for the best, but still plan for the worst. Hence why I'm sharing this information with you. Once again, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.